I want to give you guys my predictions for all the NFL head coaching hires. Who's going to become the next head coach of the Carolina Panthers, the Atlanta Falcons, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Chargers? I got you guys. My first prediction for the Carolina Panthers, I got them hiring Texans offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick. Bobby Slowick, he doesn't have a lot of experience as a play caller and as a coach in general. He spent a couple of seasons with the 49ers under Kyle Shanahan, and when D'Amico got the call to be the head coach of the Texans, of course, he followed him there. And for the Carolina Panthers, you need an offensive-minded head coach because you drafted Bryce Young with the number 1 overall pick, and it's only right that you do him the favor of getting him an offensive-minded coach that can help elevate his game. Because after what we saw from him in year 1, yeah, the team wasn't good, but he didn't look like the same player that I saw playing at Alabama under Nick Saban. Bobby Slowick is probably the best hire the Carolina Panthers can make when it comes to getting a offensive-minded coach that has potential to be able to turn the franchise around, because with how bad of an owner David Tepper is and him being regarded as the next Dan Snyder, I don't think too many coaches, at least the ones that are being highly touted, are going to want to coach under him. Bobby Slowick, with him being inexperienced, he probably is going to get passed over for a lot of head coaching opportunities. And if he really wants to become a head coach, doesn't want to wait another season for a better opportunity, I definitely could see him taking this Carolina Panthers job. So I believe Bobby Slowick is going to be the next head coach of the Carolina Panthers. That's my prediction. Bill Belichick, I'm really confident that he's going to the Atlanta Falcons. They got a second interview lined up with him this weekend. The first interview they did, I believe the dude was on a damn yacht. And Bill Belichick, he came out and there was a report that said that he wants to coach for a team that has a little bit of talent but has underachieved. Well, the Atlanta Falcons definitely underachieved this past season because Atlanta fans were really excited about how good this team had the ability to be with how easy of a schedule they had, not going up against a lot of great quarterbacks, playing in a weak division, and they had a pretty good squad. Outside of the quarterback position and the offensive line being a little bit inconsistent from time to time when it came to pass blocking, Atlanta had a really good defense last season, and they got a really good amount of young, talented pieces to work with on offense if you're Bill Belichick. And when you bring in Josh McDaniels to be your offensive coordinator, all you really got to find is a quarterback and improve the offensive line, which is what Bill Belichick does better than the majority of other coaches in the National Football League. And you know the defense is going to be up to par. The Atlanta Falcons have everything that Bill Belichick needs to be able to get himself back into the playoffs and to kind of change his legacy in a sense. Because most of us regard Bill Belichick to be the greatest head coach in NFL history. But when Tom Brady left and won that Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Bill Belichick drafted Mac Jones, we obviously can see that Tom Brady was a little bit more of a factor and had more influence on the Patriots' success than what Bill Belichick did. And for Bill Belichick, he definitely has to be having a little bit of some hard feelings about that, how people are talking about him and his legacy. So, of course, he wants to get back into it and show everybody that he's still a great coach and why he is regarded as arguably the greatest head coach in NFL history. I see him going to the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons owner, he's really committed to winning right now. He wants to win at all costs. He realizes he isn't getting any older. And Bill Belichick is still a damn good coach. All he needs is a quarterback and some pieces on offense. The Atlanta Falcons already have that. All he needs to do is improve the offensive line, draft the right quarterback, or pick up the right quarterback in free agency or trade for one, and the Falcons will be rolling. Mike Vrabel, I see him going to the Washington Commanders. The new GM of the Commanders already has a lot of familiarity with Mike Vrabel when he was working with the Patriots organization back in the early 2000s. Now, ideally, Bobby Slowick probably will make a little bit more sense just because he has more recent familiarity with him. But if you're the Washington Commanders, hiring Bobby Slowick, as intriguing as a hire as it could be, he doesn't have a lot of experience. He's not proven as a head coach at all, or even a coordinator at that. And Mike Vrabel is. So you got a chance to get a proven head coach that is a proven winner that was able to do more or less with the Tennessee Titans the past 2 years. Like, I don't know why the Titans fired him. Like, it definitely had to be a clash between him and the general manager, because no way you thought that the Titans were going to be anywhere close to a playoff team with how bad that roster was. The Washington Commanders are a team that is in a rebuild right now, or they need to be in a little bit of a rebuild. But for a coach like Mike Vrabel, you look at the current state of the NFC East, I mean, the coaches that you're going to be going up against, you're going up against Mike McCarthy, Nick Sirianni, like Brian Dable. Like, you love Mike Vrabel's chances of being able to turn the Commanders into a formidable team right out the gate. We know how good he is on the defense side of football. He's a really good motivator. His hires when it comes to offensive coordinator the last couple of years have been really bad. But Arthur Smith is available. He's probably going to bring him along with them. So the offense should be set. Now, who does he want to be his quarterback? Well, he could either roll with Sam Howell, or they could get rid of Sam Howell, draft a quarterback, because they do got a pretty high pick. So they could either trade up for the one spot to get Caleb Williams, or they could take Drake May or Jaden Daniels, whoever else they feel comfortable picking at their current draft spot with Vrabel as the head coach. And this dude never wanted his best players to be traded. Like, there was a video that went around on Instagram that kind of went a little viral when he was visibly frustrated and had to get up out of his seat on draft night when they traded A.J. Brown to the Eagles a few years back and they drafted Treylon Burks. Like, he had to get up and get a little bit of air, and I don't blame him. The dude wants to win. He isn't somebody that's one of those people that cares about tanking and draft positioning. Like, he wants to win. He wants to compete. And the Washington Commanders, with their new ownership group, they need a good coach and also a good culture builder, because the culture with this team has been really bad the last couple of years. Now, it's not as bad as what it used to be like a decade ago, but under Ron Rivera, there just was a lot of complacency, a lot of mediocrity walking through the locker room. And Mike Vrabel, he's one of those coaches that gets the most out of all his players. His players are never going to quit on him. They got a lot of respect and admiration for him. And he's an alpha. And that's what the Washington Commanders need as a head coach. They need somebody that's proven, somebody that has a track record that you can look at and say, okay, like, this dude has had success in the league. This dude had the 1 seed with the most injuries in the NFL that season. They got the 1 seed. He took the Titans to the AFC Championship game when they upset the Baltimore Ravens. Y'all remember that? This is a really good football coach, and this is what the Washington Commanders need. I also have seen them linked to Ben Johnson, but Mike Vrabel is too good of a head coach for you to pass up on for an unproven commodity. Now, for the Raiders, Antonio Pierce, it's only right that you make this dude the interim head coach. If you can't get Jim Harbaugh or Bill Belichick, Antonio Pierce is your next best option. I like Antonio Pierce. He did a really good job improving the Raiders defense when he took over as the interim head coach. He got a big win against the Kansas City Chiefs, albeit it wasn't the most prettiest win. And there were some things that Antonio Pierce could have did a little bit better. Some may argue and say that he should have benched Aiden O'Connell. But it's like the dude did a pretty good job his first couple of weeks on the job with the Las Vegas Raiders. And I'm hoping that he gets it full time, only if they don't get Jim Harbaugh, because Jim Harbaugh is just too good of a head coach that you can't pass on for a guy like Antonio Pierce. He isn't that proven. Jim Harbaugh, his ways of winning translate anywhere he goes. He was winning at Stanford when they were terrible. He was winning this past year at Michigan, winning national championships when they were down for years. And he turned the 49ers into a powerhouse in his first 3 seasons there. He took them to 3 straight NFC championships and 1 Super Bowl appearance. And the only reason he got fired was because he never got along with the ownership. So if you're Mark Davis, if you can't get Jim Harbaugh or Bill Belichick, you get Antonio Pierce. The players like him, already has familiarity with the organization, and the GM who was anointed the interim GM, he's still there as well. So it only makes sense for them to keep Antonio Pierce. He got to get the quarterback right. I hope that he doesn't do a stupid decision and go out and get a guy like a Russell Wilson. Like, get you a young quarterback and get you a good offensive coordinator that can develop him. Coaches like Antonio Pierce end up fumbling away opportunities like this because they fuck up with the quarterback position. Get quarterback right, Antonio Pierce, if you get this job. Like, don't be goofing around with no Aiden O'Connell or signing no Russell Wilson in free agency. Like, if Antonio Pierce gets this job and he hires an offensive coordinator and they go out and they get a Russell Wilson, he's going to get fired pretty fast and he's not going to work out. Like, it doesn't matter if the players like you or not if you're not winning on the field. You got to be able to keep winning for players to continue to like you, because nobody likes playing for a losing head coach. So Antonio Pierce to the Raiders, I believe he's going to end up becoming their full-time head coach. I don't see them getting Jim Harbaugh. I just feel like Jim Harbaugh is so infatuated with this LA Chargers coaching job, and that's where I got him going. Jim Harbaugh to the Chargers. Listen, I'm not a LA Chargers fan, but I'm a fan of the NFL, and I want the football gods to finally deliver the Chargers ownership the ability to dish out the amount of money that it takes to get a big-time head coach. And it seems like they took a big amount of offense to people calling them cheap, saying that they don't care too much about winning. They only try to find a good bargain. And it looks like they're going to put all the resources that they have available of being able to land a big-name head coach. They've had a lot of interest in Mike Vrabel, a lot of interest in Bill Belichick, and Jim Harbaugh has been linked to this job even before their season ended. Like, right when they were getting their ass kicked by the Las Vegas Raiders on Thursday night, I was making videos on TikTok and Instagram Reels saying how Jim Harbaugh was going to be looking damn fine in that light blue Chargers attire. And Jim Harbaugh, you give him a quarterback like Justin Herbert, and they do have a little bit of talent on that squad. Now, I do know some of their better players when it comes to Khalil Mack and Mike Williams. You don't really know their future with the organization due to their contract situations. But either way, you give Justin Herbert a head coach like Jim Harbaugh, and I promise you, you're not going to be asking yourself, how is Justin Herbert so good but unable to win playoff games? Because Jim Harbaugh is going to put this dude in a system that's going to just completely elevate him. And you're going to have the best head coach that the Chargers have had since God knows when. I can't remember the last time the Chargers had a somewhat competent head coach that was even in the same realm, the same breathing space as a guy like Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh, he's won everywhere he's been. And there's no reason to expect him not to win with the LA Chargers. The Seahawks, I got them hiring Ben Johnson, currently the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. If I'm Ben Johnson, I got my eyes set on two jobs that give me the best chance to win right away. And that's the Atlanta Falcons and the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks, they have everything you need to be able to be a championship team right away, as long as you know what you're doing. They've done a fantastic job of building this team up through the draft. They got talented wide receivers, DK Metcalf, JSN. Tyler Lockett is starting to fall off a little bit, but you got Noah Fant. You got a really promising young offensive line. Your defense is pretty good. It's talented. It just has underachieved. A guy like Ben Johnson, with how much of a high demand he's in right now, I wouldn't risk taking the opportunity with the team that has to be rebuilt. I'd rather go to a team that's already built, just needs a good coaching, because it's a lot easier to have success right away. Seattle with Ben Johnson, with how good of an offensive mind this dude is, if they get the right QB in there, or if they run it back with Geno Smith, this possibly could be a top 5, top 10 offense with Ben Johnson at the helm. And if he gets the right defensive coordinator, you mean to tell me that you don't think Seattle could be in the conference championship game next year? Like, this team has so much young talent. We look at how young the Packers were, or how young they are right now with their recent win over Dallas in the wild card round. But the Seattle Seahawks, they're pretty young in their own right. And there are a lot of talented young players on that team that have been underutilized, especially offensively. So you get a guy like Ben Johnson in there calling the plays and assembling a pretty good coaching staff that he can do that thing and get the defense right, Seattle could be right back in the Super Bowl conversation. And lastly, the Tennessee Titans, I got them going with Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan. I don't know if they want to go defense, considering the fact that they have Will Levis at QB and they're not going to be in prime position to get any of the top-ranked quarterbacks in this year's draft unless they trade up. But how are they going to trade up when they don't really have a lot of compelling assets to do that? So Will Levis, he's somebody that he showed a little bit of promise, but there's also a lot of reasons to be skeptical about him. He had a good game against the Miami Dolphins when they put off that big upset Monday night, and his debut against the Atlanta Falcons was fucking fantastic. Like, you would have thought that this dude was going to be it at quarterback for Tennessee, but I'm still not sold on him. And the Tennessee Titans, it would be in their best interest to go ahead and get an offensive-minded head coach that can actually give Will Levis a better chance at becoming a competent franchise quarterback for this organization. Brian Callahan, this dude isn't no no-name coordinator. He has been in these head coaching discussions for the last 2 years. He came really close to getting that Arizona Cardinals job, along with his defensive coordinator currently on the staff with him, and Lou Anarumo. And he also interviewed for a couple of other jobs last year as well. He doesn't call plays for the Cincinnati Bengals. He never has, but he's a big part of the game planning, the scouting. Like, he does a lot for Zach Taylor and company down there in Cincy. And for the Tennessee Titans to get him, I feel would be a pretty good hire if they can't get any of the bigger name head coaches out there. Like, they don't have no traction with Bill Belichick or Jim Harbaugh. And you got rid of Mike Vrabel, who was a defensive-minded coach. And the biggest Achilles heel for Mike Vrabel, although he was a really good head coach, is that he could never get the offense right. Yes, we know that they were depleted on the offense side of football. No offensive line, damn near no receivers, not great quarterback play. So you bring in a guy like Brian Callahan, he can elevate that offense. Tennessee, you need an offensive-minded head coach when you look at the division that you're going to be playing in for the next couple of years. When you got Anthony Richardson, Shane Steichen, you got Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence. I believe they can figure it out eventually. And even if they don't figure it out, you still got to worry about DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud. Everybody has a good quarterback. And for you to have a good quarterback, you need an offensive-minded head coach or OC that can put them in a system that can elevate them. And that's what I believe Brian Callahan can do with Will Levis. And he also has familiarity with the Sean McVay coaching tree. He also was working under him, I believe. So when you look at Brian Callahan, he's been with Zach Taylor ever since he first arrived from LA to Cincinnati. And I think if you're Tennessee, this would be probably one of the better hires that you can make, unless you want to go on the defense side of the football and maybe you get a Mike McDonald or somebody like that. But I don't think Dan Quinn would be a good hire. I really believe you need somebody who knows what they're doing on the offense side of the football so you can hopefully have a franchise QB in Will Levis, because once you got quarterback right, a lot of other things become a lot easier to fix, and it becomes a lot easier to win games when you can get consistent high-level quarterback play.